so the other issue, with what's going on over there, which is really odd, it's like the whole thing. It actually reminds me of like the whole pro-Hamas things, where you have all these Ukrainians, they're protesting in the streets, Ukraine, 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 Ukraine. It's like, what do they want? I mean, what exactly are these people want? I mean, we've given, the United States has given, Ukraine hundreds of billions of dollars for the last 2 years. I'm not talking about what happened in the last 26 years when, when the Soviet Union fell and Ukraine had plenty of time to become an economic powerhouse. And, Ukrainians and Russians, not too much difference in terms of brains. I mean, these are people who are very intelligent. And instead, after 20, 26, 25, or how many years after the wall fell down, 30 years actually, probably more, when the Soviet Union came down, they couldn't, most of the country, it's poverty. You've got a small percentage that's very wealthy. And so basically, who stole all that money in the last 30 years that they were getting from international aid? Where did that money go? That's the question that I have. The other question is, I'm like driving down the street here in Beverly Hills. There's homeless people, homeless encampments everywhere and everything. No one's fixing that, but we're going to fix, a problem over there. No one is fixing the fentanyl problem in the United States. It's killing, millions of people and millions of kids, but we're going to go fix that. And, and then, the other issue that I have is, which is really odd, because I came back to LA about a year and a half ago. I was traveling. I was actually living in Europe. I was living in Budapest, Hungary. That's another story. But, so I'm walking in Beverly Hills here in Santa Monica, and there's a lot of young Ukrainian men, fresh off the boat. They're shopping at Gucci. They're shopping at Fendi. They're shopping at Armani. They're driving expensive cars, and none of them are serving in the Ukrainian army. They all took off. So the question is, who's serving in the Ukrainian army? If my tax dollars as a Ukrainian immigrant, if my US tax dollars are being used to send money and aid to Ukraine, who's serving in that army for Ukraine while other people are shopping, in Beverly Hills, and it's really, and you look at all these protests, these people, these Ukrainian, protests. These people are protesting during the day. None of them, if you ask them, will you ever go back to Ukraine? None of them will go back to Ukraine. If they really wanted to help Ukraine, they'd get on a plane and they'd work as, I don't know, like medics, or they'd work in, preparing food. None of them will do that. They go drive back to their suburban houses, and then at night, where they're going? They're going to the Russian restaurants to dance. And and on that note, I also want to say, this other woman that confronted me about saying, Slava Ukraini in the building. After she said that to me, I looked at her. I said, okay, I'll think about saying that, but you have to say, I'm Israel High. I want to make sure you support Israel. And her response to me right away was, well, I don't know too much about that situation. I could only focus right now on Ukraine. I'm like, oh, okay. But the interesting thing about it is, after I had my little chat with her, she's holding like a bag of groceries. And it was from like a Russian store in Los Angeles. And she looks at me, she's like, oh, look at all these, like, like Russian, like dumplings she bought and all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, you're telling me how horrible Russians are, how I'm supposed to, how she also accosted me because she heard me listening to some song. It was like a Russian song on YouTube. And she's like, how dare you listen to a Russian artist on YouTube? They're going to get royalties. But she's shopping at a Russian store, buying Russian food. At the same time, she's telling me this stuff. So the level of hypocrisy that's there, it's just crazy.
If you like this video, Check out the full interview. Also, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you get notified every time a new video is uploaded. Thanks for watching.